And my friends, our God is with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to the disciples that he must go to Jerusalem to suffer many things at the hands of the elders and the chief priests and the religious scholars, and that he must be killed and on the third day raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Rabbi," he said, "never will this happen to you." Jesus turned to Peter and said, "Get yourself behind me, you Satan. You are trying to make me stumble and fall. You are setting your mind not on the things of God, but on the things of mortals." Then Jesus said to the disciples, "If you wish to come after me, you must deny yourselves, take up your cross, and follow in my footsteps. If you would save your life, you will lose it. But if you lose it, you will save it for my sake. For what profit would you show if you gained the whole world but lost yourself? What can you offer in exchange for your very self? The promised one will come in the glory of God, accompanied by the angels, and will repay all according to their deeds." My friends, the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. I actually love this line. You're setting your minds not on the things of God, but on the things of mortals. Not on the things of God, but on the things of mortals. Isn't that an interesting statement? I wonder what it would mean to set our minds on the things of God. I believe that most of us actually live in or under the heretical illusion of what I call Christian triumphalism. And I know that may be hard to hear, and I'd like to explain what I mean, because it sneaks into our theological imaginations very subtly, and it actually has pervaded the Western theological landscape. So let me ask this: what does living the Christian perfect life look like to us in our imagination? Most, I think, would say it looks like good people doing good things with little or no conflict, maybe no war, no really bad stuff happening. Probably something like the land and the people living in harmony and in peace and in justice, and none of this really bad disease, no cancer, none of that kind of stuff. Like that to me looks like the perfect Christian world. It's kind of a somewhat of a vision of utopia, right? A place like, maybe like the Garden of Eden. Rest and relaxation, just kind of wandering through life, enjoying goodness and grace and peace, kind of like the very first day of a much needed and a maybe much deserved vacation. Our imaginations, my friends, are very important and very necessary in our theological life. Reverend Colleen often speaks about theological imagination and the need for that in our lives. And yet, if we're not careful and we don't look closely, we can run into some very deep problems between our imagination and our reality. It's easy to become swayed by the thought that if we're just really good Christians, if we just live a good life, if we do our best to follow the 10 Commandments and the Beatitudes, and that if we do this whole church thing and pray and do some good works, then all will be well. Like maybe a little bump in the road or an occasional bump in the road, but hopefully not too big of a bump. Isn't that right? Isn't that kind of like what we all kind of hope for? If you could do me a favor, Raise your hand if you think that that picture might be something that you imagine when I say it's a perfect world. That would be a perfect world. If that's a perfect world, and I believe sometimes that is what I think, then we have some problems, because when natural disasters strike and wars break out and people young and old die, and we encounter brutality and corruption and things like COVID-19 happen, then our perfect little imagination of what should be gets torn. And sometimes it even gets destroyed. And you and I are left asking the unanswerable question, why? Why did this have to happen? Why did my loved one have to die? Why did racism have to destroy so many lives? Why do earthquakes and volcanoes destroy so much? Why do fires wipe out the lives of people and their livelihoods? Why, as the infamous book title says, why do bad things happen to good people? That, my friends, is exactly where the heresy of Christian triumphalism falls apart. And our utopic Garden of Eden ends up looking a lot more like a desert than a garden. I think that is precisely why Jesus said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You're not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of mortals." So what does it mean to set our minds on the things of God? I believe it means to accept life and all that it entails on life's terms. To accept the fact that both joy and tragedy will be a part of our lived experience. That hurt and pain and mystery are all a part of the journey, just as are ecstasy and sorrow and joy and tears. What does it mean to set our minds on the things of God? Maybe it means that sometimes life as we know it won't make any sense at all. And that ultimately faith is about trusting in our God and in God's unending presence with us, even when we're on the cross. Even there, in the midst of the tragedy, in the midst of the hurt, in the midst of the loss, even there, God is Emmanuel, God with us. Because if God is love, and I firmly believe that God is, love will prevail. Remember, there are three things, and the greatest of these is love. Jesus' life, my friends, proved it over and over again. In the good times and in the challenging times, at the wedding feast and at the cross, at the death of Lazarus, and in the Garden of Calvary, God is there. Maybe setting our minds on the things of God means ultimately accepting the fact that we are human, knowing that we are more than this transient experience of being human. And maybe setting our minds on the things of God means that we are to help others to see a glimpse of God in us. Maybe a sliver of hope, or a modicum of trust, or a heart that's overflowing with love. I think that is what it means for us to lose our life for the sake of Christ. And as the gospel said, to lose our life is to save it.